Hey everybody, Jake here at TrendSpider to go over the weekend video into the last week of September. This is going to be a pretty quick video because I did lose my voice a little bit in the beginning of the week and still kind of recovering from that. So over the course of the video, you'll probably hear it get a little raspy, but let's jump into it and make this a quick, informative video for everybody going into the week ahead. So to start the week, we definitely had a pretty ugly gap down. Now, what is really interesting on the daily chart for SPY is you'll see these arrows on the daily chart on the left are all pointing to these large red volume bars. And you'll see here that every time that we've had that huge spike in volume over the last really 9 months since the beginning of the year, these have marked bottoms in the market, short-term bottoms and really long-term bottoms. As you can see here, we've continued to hit higher lows since each one has formed. Same thing here. We had this huge spike on Monday, and you can see here that we've pretty much gone straight up since then. And we did have trouble getting through the anchored VWAP from the all-time highs here, but you can see that we did have a pretty strong close on Friday, and we'll have to see if we can get above that to really get buyers back in control from the highs. Now, there is a tool that we launched a couple weeks ago, but I really didn't know how to use it in this way until Dan brought this up to me today. So if everybody's familiar with the new channel tool, you can see here that really all I'm doing is drawing a line, clicking, and then we can kind of create a channel. Now, generally, this is for channels like this, if we wanted to kind of highlight this channel. But the thing is, you can actually use this for support and resistance zones as well. So you'll see here that I actually already have these saved. So you'll see if I click this on the bottom left, I connect, let's say, this point to this point here, and then connect these wicks. You'll see here that I now have a zone rather than an exact trend line. So if you guys have been following the videos before, you'll remember that I was using pretty much a solid line and then a dashed line to kind of highlight these zones. Well, now you can just use the linear regression channel tool to do that for these areas. So notice here, I also have one for the red kind of channel tool. So I'll click here, extend, make my zone, make it a little thicker here, extend it a little more. And now we have an ascending wedge that is zones rather than just trend lines. So if you're looking at any type of trend line, it's always going to be a zone. It's not going to be an exact price point. So you'll see here that using this type of format, you can see that we actually did hold within this wedge here this week. We did kind of undercut it maybe by $1 or $2, but we are still holding right at support. And it's looking like we could have a pretty strong week going into the week ahead with this pretty strong candle for the weekly candle on SPY. Now, going into the Qs, we had a very similar week. We had the gap down on Monday, and we moved up pretty much since then. So you can see here that we have the swing low anchored VWAP and then the swing high anchored VWAP. And you'll see on Thursday and Friday, we pretty much hit both of those perfectly and just couldn't get above them. So if we get above these two lines, we will have more or less buyers back in control from the swing high and the swing low. Now, on the weekly chart, one thing that I really wanted to point out here is the fact that we technically had a red close. Why? Well, because we had a hollow red candle. What does that mean? It means that we closed below last week's close, but our close for this week was much higher than the open. So if you turn on a regular candle, you'll see this is actually a green candle. But in reality, if you turn on the hollow candle, this was actually a red close versus last week's close. Now, if you turn on the raindrop, you'll also see that we had a green close on the raindrop chart, which shows that from a volume perspective, there was a volume-backed strong move into the second half of the week, which shows this VWAP during the second half of the week higher than the first half, which makes it green. So all in all, very strong candles here on the weekly for both SPY and the Qs, as well as IWM. So you'll see here on the IWM, same thing, swing high, swing low. We actually closed above the swing high and the swing low, which we did not get to do on the Qs. So IWM is actually in a pretty good spot. We closed Thursday and Friday above these two levels. And you'll see here, same thing. I've got this area here that is kind of the symmetrical triangle that's zones rather than rather than exact trend lines. So it highlights a lot more of the price action and gives us a little more flexibility. Now, if we do turn on the volume by price, you'll see here that we had some volume above the point of control, but if you turn on just a regular candle here, or a hollow candle, excuse me, we did close right at the point of control. So remember, anytime that we're closing at the point of control, kind of in the middle of the shelf, we're going to highlight this orange because we haven't gotten through that supply yet. We're getting close, but we're not above it. So anytime we're not above it, we're going to highlight this orange. Once we get above this volume shelf, we'll highlight it green, showing that's a pretty strong demand zone and a base for price. But all in all, for IWM, we do need to close above that point of control next week to really get some traction into the end of September. Now, let's go into some individual names, starting with CRM. Oh my gosh, CRM was just an absolute monster this week. And, CRM's not always a monster. So the fact that it finally had a huge move is pretty rare. So we did break out of this ascending triangle and just literally went straight up. So you can see here that the fibs here, we're using the 1.618 extension because if we look left, we don't really have any more price action to get above. We have this area here, but we closed above it. So any other resistance above is going to have to be a function of fibs because we're in price discovery mode. So this 1.618 extension right around 289.50, 290 would be your target above. So if we look at the weekly chart, you'll see that we did have this kind of bull flag forming, huge move to the upside, hit the initial target of 285 and really looks very strong going into the week ahead. Could we get a little bit of a pullback like we had here on this big candle? Sure, but for those that were trading it this week, just a huge, huge winner. Going into Tesla. Tesla is looking very strong here. So you'll see here that I'm actually using that same tool that we just used on SPY and some of the other names where this is just the linear regression tool, really. So we do have this ascending triangle. We need to get above right around 780. So, 780 is both a psychological level and, your previous high here. So if we can get above that, we could be hitting all-time highs pretty quickly. So definitely keep this one on watch going into the week ahead. And then you can see here that we kind of have this progression from the symmetrical triangle breakout that we were talking about a month ago. And then finally, we did hit that target above, which was just these previous highs. And if we anchor a VWAP from the all-time high, you'll see here that we're way above the all-time high. Buyers are in control and really looking very strong into the week ahead. Now, PENN is the next one. Full disclosure, I do have a position in this one, and I'll kind of give you guys the thesis on why. So, one, at least on the daily chart, you'll see here that we did break out of this kind of downward sloping, broadening channel here. So if we turn on the raindrop, you'll see, look at that volume. Most of that volume is at the top of the range. So that tells us that there's conviction by buyers willing to absorb supply at the top of the range, showing that there's pretty aggressive buying going on intraday. Now, if we turn on the the hollow candle, regular candle, whatever you want to call it, it's going to look the same on either the hollow or the regular, at least from the wick standpoint. You'll see that we have these wicks. So there is a lot of volume actually within those wicks shown by the raindrop chart. And that's a reason why I really believe that there's gearing up to be a pretty big move. We obviously have to break above the swing high anchored VWAP before we do that. And that's right around, let's call it 77.50. So we really need to break through that on the daily. But if you look at the weekly chart, if you anchor the volume by price from the COVID lows, you'll see here that we almost have this kind of cup and handle. So you got your kind of cup here, you've got your little bit of a handle forming right into this volume shelf. So, you've got the cup and handle, you've got the volume shelf. If you turn on the MACD, you'll see here that we did recently just cross and we're starting to tick up again. So all in all, it is looking very strong here on both the daily and the weekly, and we really just have to take price action as it plays out. And if it goes up, great. If it doesn't, the trade is probably invalidated. But for now, We're holding that volume shelf. We've got kind of this cup and handle formation. MACD recently crossed. Raindrops are showing volume at the top of the range for the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday of the week. So definitely an interesting one going into the last week of September. Now, next one, PLTR. You'll see here that I'm just using the actual channel drawing tool the right way here, where we're actually highlighting this channel here. So we're still pretty much stuck in the channel. We could even make this a little bigger here to capture some of that price action too. And if we did move to the upside of this channel is kind of right in line with this gap. So, we'd fill the gap right around 31.30, and the top of the channel is right around there as well. So definitely another one that showed some strength this week going into the last week of September. And then if you look at the weekly chart, it kind of speaks for itself. We've got a nice breakout on the ascending triangle. You've got, this nice volume shelf that the price has bounced off multiple weeks now, and we are really kind of heading to the gap above from what it seems like, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. Notice we do have a red candle, so we did close below last week's close, but if you turn on the raindrop, it is a green raindrop. So you do have a little bit of divergence there, and most of that volume is at the top of the range, showing buyers are definitely willing to absorb that supply at the top of the range. Last one that we'll go over is Delta. This is one that I went over a couple weeks ago, and we finally got the breakout. And so if you guys remember, this is how I was drawing these zones before. Now, all I need to do is click here, make my zone, and now we can make that so much easier. And we don't have to make two trend lines. It's just one single trend line. So this is a tool that you really want to start using. It's going to make your charts a lot prettier, a lot more flexible. You're not going to have to just use one trend line. You can use a zone. And this is something you're going to see my charts completely change now that we have this tool that you can use on the platform. So definitely check it out. Remember, you're just using the linear regression channel tool, the draw channel, and then you can kind of change the colors. So you'll see here if I double click, so the main line is green, parallel line is green, the background is green for support. If I wanted to create the resistance one, I double click, you'll see all of these are just red. And notice here that I'm not displaying the middle line. Now you could if you want. I'm personally just keeping that out. It's just a little noisy. So definitely wanted to show you guys just kind of a quick example of how I'm going to kind of change up my charts using this tool, and just the fact that Delta absolutely ripped over the last 5 days. The next target would just simply be this pivot above, which is right around 44.50. And if we break through that, we could start moving towards all-time highs. Now, if you look at the weekly side of things, you'll see here that we do have the COVID low anchored volume by price. Nice bounce off the volume shelf. Volume shelf kind of turned into a launch pad there. We really need to get above this swing high anchored VWAP. And if we do, buyers will definitely be in control moving forward. So hopefully this video is helpful. Remember to like and subscribe if you do enjoy these videos. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. Sorry again about my voice. You can kind of hear it going away over the last, let's say 5 minutes, but it will probably be back next week. Hopefully everybody has a great weekend, and thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, as always, and you are a TrendSpider user, hello@TrendSpider.com. They're happy to help you get these channel drawings set up if you do need a little more help. And if you have not signed up yet, we do have that 7-day free trial that you can try out. And, hope you like it. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.